I'm Jay Beershank. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's another edition of Book Reviews. For this one, we're in Cambodia. We're on an island called Kota Kiev. Been living here for 3 weeks. I have about one more week here, 1 month total. There's like a bungalow hotel that I've been working at. Very amazing. But what's more amazing has been this book, Musashi, by Eiji Yokosawa. This book was written in the 70s in Japan. It has become a very famous book in Japan. A book that is referenced often for the cultural ideals portrayed in it, like the characters are equated to people, you know, like, oh, you're acting like such and such. The book, to me, was honestly one of the most beautiful books I've ever read easily. This morning when I was writing about the book, this might sound like a lofty way to put it, but the book is as beautiful as life itself. Because the way that the book goes is it's following about a 15-year span of a young man who is a samurai. And the way that the book flows through time and the way that the book talks about life and situations from the perspectives of different characters that are at different ages, and some are wise, some are naive, some are rich, some are poor. And in Japanese culture, you know, it's a class culture, so there's merchant class and the, you know, and the daimyos and the shoguns and the samurai and the peasants, and it's all very class-based system. And the way in which the author portrays people's ideals and ideas based on their class and based on their level of intelligence, it's just beautiful. And an underlying theme throughout this whole book is the way. They talk about the way very much, and they capitalize the W in the way. Like, the way is an understood categorization or understood ideal, the way. And this is equated to like the way of the samurai, or the way of the sword, or the way of honor, or the way of the heart. And the book is really about the young man trying to live the life according to the way, trying to understand the way. And it's just a very perilous journey for him, because somewhere towards the end of the book, you know, he's facing these hardships, and he's just not, all the hardships are internal, because following the way is a dignified path of honor, responsibility, love, truth, you know, humility. And it starts to weigh on him, and then he finally says, but I will continue to follow the way, the long way through life. And it's just, you know, the whole book is just based around these Japanese ideals of honor and dignity and beauty and serenity. And it's just really so beautiful. I've been to Japan before. I spent 3 months there, and that was 2 years ago now. And this book just made me feel like I was back there. Like, the way that they talk about, the way that the writer expresses Japanese ideals and talks about the towns and the cities and the countryside, it just was so refreshing. Because to me, Japanese countryside is the most serene, beautiful place I've ever been in the world. Running across these temples everywhere, and just the sense of serenity, really, that's just encompassing all of Japan is really beautiful, and it was portrayed perfectly through this book. I really enjoyed it. The book is about 1,000 pages long. This is probably the longest book I've ever read. But really, the story is so gripping and so riveting, because not only is it a psychological and philosophical novel, but it's an action-adventure novel. You know, he's a samurai, and it's based on the way of the samurai, and he's always saying the samurai has to be ready for death at any time, you know. So he's, at the same time, he's perfecting his kind of serene, beauty-oriented approach towards life, but he's also perfecting this self-discipline, warrior mindset and warrior mentality and warrior skill, you know. So he's a killer, you know. He's a warrior and he's a samurai, and it's such a good story because there's like these dualities, you know, these dualities of like the merciless warrior code mixed in with the appreciation and the you know, the honor and humility of following the way, and it was just all so great. And another part that I really liked was like in the book they perfectly portray like the class system of Japan, and the only thing that can dissolve the barriers of classism were people who were fellow travelers of the way. So in the book, the main character is a traveling swordsman, which is a very low rank in society. And like when he is in the midst of great people, daimyos, who are like lords of specific provinces, or when he's in the room with very high-ranking people, the only way in which there is ever commonalities and no need for this kind of obeisance and obsequiousness is when they all understand that they're all following this same way, because the way is based on humility, honor, love, respect, and responsibility. And so these people can dissolve the classism and work together. And one of the most beautiful things, honestly the most beautiful thing, was that Musashi, the main character, towards the end of the book, he's been following the way, and you know, he's very humble the whole time. He never says he's enlightened or anything like that. But he starts to look at the way as more than just a personal discipline. He starts to think about the way as a way that we could govern people, a way to be leader, a way to run a country, a way to bring people together, to keep people alive, to give people meaning and purpose to their life. And that's something that I've thought a lot about in my life too, because, you know, I've been trying to follow a path of discipline and understanding like enlightenment and trying to understand these concepts. And something I keep coming back to is it's bigger than oneself, you know, it's much bigger than oneself, because what is without is a reflection of what's within, I like to think about it as. So these ideas of enlightenment and self-discipline and following the way, he starts to attribute them to government and trying to think about how the Japanese government at that time, you know, is maybe not incorporating that into the way that it governs. And it's really interesting because there's a lot of political aspects to this book as well, because this book takes place in the 1600s, the turn of that century. There's a war. I'm not exactly super up on Japanese history, but basically there's a war, and after this war, the whole of Japan kind of enters a new era where it's not so much about the brutality of the sword, but it's about the eloquence of the pen. So a little bit more of like the chalice and the blade aspect. The power of the blade diminishes and the power of government kind of comes up. I don't know if that's the chalice and the blade necessarily, but a different aspect of the blade maybe. Very, very interesting book. I'd recommend 10 out of 10. Adventure is 10, philosophy is 10, psychological aspect 10, and beauty is 10. Check it out, guys. Seriously, you won't be disappointed. You won't be disappointed. Musashi by Eiji Yokosawa. Alright guys, take it easy. Love you guys. Don't forget to love and subscribe, like and subscribe. I'll post a vlog of my month here on the island pretty soon once I get off the island. Keep it real. Peace.